Hello and welcome to another video in our Game of Thrones Vivarium series. In today's video, we're going to cover all the foam carving that took place in this build, from the backgrounds of the Vivarium to the two main rock features. As you can see, we're starting out with a large block of foam. What we've done is we've drawn out roughly where we want everything to be, and now we're going to go about carving into it. Remember, when using anything that melts foam, to wear a mask, as you really don't want to be breathing in those fumes. To start off with, we carved out the tunnels, which you can just pull out from the bottom. The tools that we're going to be using to make our rock effect are from the hot wire foam factory, and they're the hot wire cutters. We'll put a link for these in the description below. Now, bear in mind, you don't need to use hot wire knives like we're using. You could use a standard knife, you could use a scraper, whatever you're going to use to get the effect that you want. The reason we've chose these is because we know that we can do it quickly and easily. Now, when using the hot wire knives, you've got to remember that these get hot very fast, and when you turn them on, you need to be really careful with your hands, wires or anything else. You don't want to be burning. Now, when carving the rocks, we want the surface to be really uneven, so before you put the loop cutter in into your hands, you just want to create a wavy pattern within the wire. The more small bends you've got, the better, because it'll bring out a really good rock effect when carving. The next thing we want to do is we want to be quite aggressive with the carving to try and take out as much of the unneeded material as possible so that we get close to our final desired shape. Now, in this vivarium, we're going to be housing bearded dragons, so what I want is somewhere big enough that they can climb up and rest on to make a perfect shelf for them, and what we're going to use is this cliff piece to do just that. Now we need a way for them to be able to get to the top, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a ramp that they can climb up. To do this, we're going to add on another piece to the front of the cliff so that the ramp isn't too steep, and we follow the exact same process as we did before when carving, as well as digging out the tunnel entrance. It's not an exact science, so keep testing the new piece against the original and keep cutting until you're happy. Next, we're going to use some adhesive and some toothpicks in order to bond both pieces together. Once you've lined everything up and pressed the two pieces together, you can lay it on its back and put some weight on the top to make sure that the bond is secure. Once the adhesive is dried, then we can neaten up the seam line between the two pieces of foam. Now, no matter what you do, you're still going to be left with a small gap in places, but this is going to be covered up later when we coat the whole thing with concrete. Now it's time for some final touches to this piece. We want to get rid of any major ridges for this style of rock that we're aiming to create, but depending on what type of rock you were trying to replicate, you would change your desired effect as required. It's these finishing touches that will really make your piece pop. And remember, it's better to be a little bit more aggressive with your carving than required, as we'll be covering the foam with concrete and any really fine detail will be lost. A major piece of this cliff is that we're going to have the emblems from some of the major houses embedded into the rock. Now what we did is we downloaded and printed these files from thingiverse.com, and the links will be in the description below so you can download and print your own. We printed ours out on a 10cm diameter, but again, depending on what scale you build in your Viv, you can scale them up or down to whichever size you want to fit your enclosure. We chose Stark, Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, Greyjoy and White Walker as the emblems for our cliff. Let me know in the comments if you would have chosen different houses. Here you can see that we're marking each of the discs that will be placed into the cliff, and when we have them all marked, we use the hot wire cutter to hollow out sections where they're going to be placed. The discs will eventually be siliconed into place, and we're going to put some rock effect around them to make sure that they blend into the stonework better. Again, same as before, you want to make sure that your holes are a little bit too wide, as soon as you add the concrete layer, it's going to reduce your working room. Once we're happy that all the discs will fit, it's time for us to test fit to see what needs to be done next. You can see that we've added another platform of rock on the right hand side, so that the ruin of the red keep is going to basically sit on that, and we want it to match up so it looks like our existing piece. What we do is we place everything into the Viv, and we can see exactly what sections we need to cut, so we mark them out. We are now going over the floor of the Vivarium. The marked out sections are being dug out for the main cliff piece to sit in, as we really want it to be slightly recessed into the ground. Keep testing the fit to see if you need to carve out any more of the foam. Also, by blending the end of the loop of the hot wire cutter into more of a right angle, you can get a better cut for placing the cliff into. Next we are marking out where we want some gullies for the bearded dragons, both inside and outside of the caves. By doing this, we can still have the cliff recessed, but we give them plenty of room inside for moving around. The flat parts that we have left will be used for placing some of the ornaments on later on. The platform on the right hand side and the back and the sides of the vivarium were carved out using the same techniques that we used for the main cliff piece, making sure not to cut too deeply on the side or back pieces, as we don't want them to go down to the bare wood of the vivarium. Once all of the cladding for the vivarium is in place, all of the gaps were filled with expanding foam and left to set overnight. The next day, the bulk of the expanding foam was carved away using a knife. Before going over all of the seams with a hot wire cutter to make a seamless transition, and then we're done with the carving. Make sure to check out our other videos in our Game of Thrones Vivarium series to see how we finished off the foam and all the other great pieces that went into our final piece. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more videos and projects like this in the future. Thanks, and see you again soon.